Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Crypto Chronicle Podcast. Taylor, welcome back. We are actually experiencing a bit of a red week, particularly on alts.
It's a bit of a bleed at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, so we obviously had a pretty bullish week last week where Bitcoin was able to push up pretty nicely in price. We obviously had the huge inflows of the ETFs setting some record days. I think we had the second highest day on Friday or Thursday.
Yeah, Friday or Thursday.
887 million or so.
Big chunk.
Big chunk. We've obviously been waiting on the S1 filings for the Ethereum ETFs. But essentially since last week, it's been a bit of a pullback in the market, particularly in altcoins, which we'll cover off a bit later today. We'll do it a bit differently today. Speaking on the progression of this market in terms of altcoins and Bitcoin and why it's been vastly different to prior cycles, I'd say it's probably harder, hasn't it been? Like you can't just buy whatever and, and anything goes up.
Yeah. It's a bit of a hard one.
Yeah, so like I was just speaking about it with Will before, and obviously most people that have been here price cycles, Bitcoin used to be a bit of a lifeboat, like irrespective that obviously cyclically it is playing out pretty similar, but usually and more often than not, you didn't have to kind of pick what narrative or industry you want to be a part of. Did you kind of just plonk your money in an altcoin and all of them went up?
Well, it's never been more segregated. That's the thing. It's a hard one because, when you look at a lot of coins that did really well, that sort of 22 area, 21,
No, not the same.
Yeah.
And we'll speak about it on that because it's become really enclosed, hasn't it? And kind of meme coins, you'd probably put in AI, RWA, and the rest has been pretty much shafted. So we'll get into that, but we'll start off with some brief news pieces. Obviously, Ethereum ETF issuers are still waiting on the SEC to provide comments on the S1 filings. Usually what happens is they'll come back and ask them to revise it a bit more. Gary will get them to send in a few more drafts and then they get them approved. So I think they're expecting this happens, within a couple of weeks.
It's got to be relatively quick, didn't it?
Yeah. I think it's just slightly different to the BTC because it's all over the place, whereas like the S1s I think were, approved well before approval and blah, blah, blah. So it's been kind of done in a sloppy order here. But they seem like they're pretty close already. I saw the SEC listed like pro shares or something on their website this morning. Yeah, so it's all a bit all over the place, but we expect that to happen pretty soon. And also with BlackRock, we spoke about this last week, me and you, but them and Citadel supporting the launch of a new stock exchange in the US, in Texas, which... it's a bit of a shake-up because obviously the New York Stock Exchange has always been the king of the stock markets over there. But what I find interesting with this is obviously through mining, you would know, is Texas is pretty pro-crypto, isn't it?
I think that's, to be really honest, that's like one of the main, I was reading an article about that and it's literally the main reason why it's become favorable, particularly for places like BlackRock and Citadel.
Yeah.
Literally for that exact reason.
Yeah,
because
there's a lot of mining that goes on in Texas due to the
legislation is so favorable towards crypto assets.
Yeah,
and obviously infrastructure around that. So it's a huge win.
And obviously we know BlackRock has ties. Is it Marathon or Riot? I think they've got
both.
Yeah, both. Okay, so they've
pretty much any major mining company they own stock in.
Yeah, there you go. And you know what we might do next week? We might actually do a podcast on mining because I was reading not to scare people, but the sentiment around mining at the moment online, from what I'm reading, is really bad. But it's actually one of those type of sentiments that is going to explode the market. So if you go and look at Marathon, Riot, and you look at all of these stocks, how heavily shorted they are right now, preparing for a potential squeeze. You go and read the sentiment on people going after mining because of energy and this and that. Setting up for a pretty interesting time, I reckon, but one that will shock a lot of people. So,
it's the same as what happened in 20.
Yeah, it's the same. Cyclically, everything in terms of greed, psychology, and everything. So, that's awesome to see that BlackRock and Citadel are pushing there. And BlackRock, obviously, it's awesome that they keep pushing in the direction of, pro crypto because, with Larry in our corner, anything's possible. And
might get Larry if Bitcoin hits like 300, 400, 500K this cycle, I think I might get Larry to put it on me.
100%. Yeah. Coinbase introduced a smart wallet with zero gas fees and simplified onboarding. So this was a big one for me because obviously we know about Base, the new Base system. And, really the narrative or industry kind of push behind Base is that that, it's to do with retail, because Coinbase is the biggest retail used app at the top of the market last year. 2021, Coinbase was the most downloaded app, I think, on the App Store at one point. And that was kind of people's marking for the top, where retail would get used as exit liquidity. But really, when you think about Base, and obviously this wallet coming out, that's the idea behind it.
The UI, I think that's the biggest thing that's come through when it comes to looking towards what retail, as much as liquidity and how they can onboard, offboard, and everything's obviously really, useful. Being able to actually look at how retail can then invest in other areas. Yeah. So the UI has become a really big focus. And I think Coinbase done it really well.
Yeah, for sure. And then, obviously, you kind of integrate the two into one. If they've got a very cheap L2 to Ethereum that's, easily accessible for memes and, retail crap like that. Yeah. And then they've also got a really cheap, easy to use UI with a really good wallet. Win-win. 1 + 1 = 2.
Well, and particularly like when you look at it, particularly in the US narrative, they've got 80, 90% of the market share?
Yeah.
Kraken would have 5% maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Robinhood would have...
And once again, Coinbase... as a stock, Coinbase is a very good investment, because not only because of these things, and obviously it's the number one used exchange in America where you said the majority of market share is, but, additionally, well, that's really the main focus, isn't it? And then the push of Binance out of the US even creates that kind of more narrative behind Coinbase and the stock. And it's not only that, it's then you factor in that they're used for all the ETFs, all the trading for those. So they've obviously got Larry and BlackRock and all of them behind them. The SEC obviously really not adores them, but likes them enough that they're suing Binance for $4 billion and allowing Coinbase to do this, even though they're in a court case with them.
How many dinners do you reckon Larry and Armstrong have been in?
How many what?
Dinners Larry and Armstrong have been
probably to? A few. A few. A few
beers.
A few. They would have had to. And then kind of the last piece, actually there's a couple more pieces, but Robinhood, obviously for those who know, Bitstamp, the long-standing kind of Bitcoin cryptocurrency exchange mainly, they're set to acquire them for $200 million, which aims to serve institutional clients in the US. Now, the reason why this is so big is like Robinhood's like the Coinbase of stocks. It's what everyone uses over stocks of GME and all that crap. And so this is kind of big in that sense that it's like, well, we've got the Coinbase of the stock market world have then now just acquired an exchange. So now...
it's a really good deal as well. Have you looked into the price points? It's $50 a user.
No, I didn't know.
That's a really good
Well, buy. I thought when I saw 200 million, I thought that was cheap off the boat, regardless of looking into the stats. So... he's Johan Kurbat essentially emphasized Bitstamp's strong reputation and resilience, and they kind of highlight the potential of combining forces to kind of get the advanced outreach globally as well, because obviously I think Bitstamp, given it's so old, it holds not only in the US a lot of regulatory standing, but internationally as well. So I think this might be Robinhood's way of saying like, this is how we can expand internationally, maybe through crypto and through this. So that was really good to see. But we'll move on to kind of what I wanted to talk about, which was the main gist of this podcast. So at first glance at the moment, if you're kind of looking at the cryptocurrency market, you'd probably get the gist that there's very, very weak sentiment, wouldn't you? Just in terms of majority, if you go to something like a YouTube, or I'm not talking about in reality, I'm saying if you go to places like a YouTube or Twitter, you'll probably find that most people are quite scared right now. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. And I didn't mean to say that people are fudding or anything. I meant to say they're scared, they're fearful. And the reason for this is, I'm going to go through a number of reasons, but the most glaringly obvious thing to me about being involved in crypto Twitter in particular is that no one holds BTC. As retail investors, you'll find as you search more and more that 99% of people don't hold Bitcoin and they only hold altcoins, and you'll find that's why you'll get confused. I was having a conversation with a friend this morning, and like we're talking about how Bitcoin's at 68, 69,000 and the feeling is so dead. And that's because majority of people don't hold the asset that's outperforming the rest of the market. They don't have miners. They don't buy spot Bitcoin at the bottom of the low. They're only buying alts, and they're chasing with leverage. And, we talk about this all the time, don't we? But when you kind of look at the first glance, you'd think it'd be euphoric because BTC is near ETHs because of ETFs and whatnot, but it's not really the reality, and it's because most people don't hold it. And what we're seeing is stuff like meme coins are exploding. We've seen with Pepe, I feel like Brett, a couple of these multi-billion valuations. Yeah. And it was really Solana, wasn't it, that empowered this meme cycle with its, cheap, really easy UI, cheap gas fees, fast transactions. And it kind of derailed the prospect of huge alt returns elsewhere, like we spoke about, across the whole market, because what it did was it sucked liquidity there, didn't it?
It's a really interesting one because when you look at it from market cycle, as we've said, retail really isn't here.
No.
It's kind of almost like the degen in all the holdings just going ballistic.
Yeah, it's PvP.
Yeah,
it's just all the crypto natives against all the crypto natives, and we're eating each other alive.
Yeah, literally. And it's almost like meme season is purely just this is the preemptive cycle of just us eating our own liquidity.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we're seeing crazy stuff like celebrity meme coins again, aren't we? So we saw Iggy Azalea's mother, I think, it's over 100 million, I think, in market cap. You saw your rappers come back, your Soulja Boy, Rich the Kid.
Jenner.
Yeah, Caitlyn Jenner was one. Saw Andrew Tate over the weekend take over Solana. Hulk Hogan got hacked and produced a meme coin.
Oh, gosh.
So you're seeing all this stuff prop up as if the sentiment is good, because usually this stuff is late cycle, isn't it? Yeah. So you see all this stuff, you're like, oh, everyone's a millionaire, everyone's making money, but this is the polar opposite of what's actually happening. 99% of people lose on these coins as an FYI. So you're somewhat not alone if you're feeling like you're somewhat uninspired or disappointed with the market, if you're parked in altcoins, because this is the majority of your portfolio. You probably haven't done as well as what you wanted. And usually a benchmark, if you are an altcoin investor, is to outperform BTC. And 99% of people wouldn't have done this because BTC's done a 4x. Yeah. And if your altcoin portfolio, over the last 6 months, just holding has done a 4x, you've done extremely well versus everyone else.
Particularly across the board. You might have had a handful.
No.
But then there's a lot that are probably gone backwards.
Yeah. Oh, well, I reckon majority of people, even though we've seen Bitcoin do a 4x, are worse off than they were 2 years ago. Yeah. So if you take it a little deeper, and what I'll do is I'll actually put some of these charts up in the editing, in the video, so you guys can see this as I talk about it. But understanding kind of the data behind this move and what's transgressed in this market is super important. So if you look at charts such as Others, BTC, I've got a chart here that shows Others, which is a representative of the total market cap, excluding Bitcoin. Excluding the top 10 coins. We're actually at the October 2023 peak, lows, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. So Bitcoin was 25,000 USD. So the total market capitalization of all cryptos, excluding just the top 10, is the exact same as what it was 8 months ago. Bitcoin was $25,000. It's now 68,000, kind of as we speak, I think, or 69,000. Sorry. I
think I've seen a bigger bullish indicator than that. I'm not going to lie. That's giving me a lot of.
Well, it's just pretty crazy. It's bullish in the sense that you're early still and things are cheap, but it kind of paints 1,000 words as to why, people are so confused. And we talk about this all the time, is that if you go back and look at price cycles like Bitcoin, halvings and the price action following that, why are people so confused right now? If you went and looked at price cycles, you wouldn't be confused at all.
I just love it that when you speak to people and I think we're getting ready for a pullback. This, and you go, okay, no worries. Yeah, it's all right. The Feds, realistically are pretty likely to cut rates over the next 6 months. Bitcoin's at 60, 70K. All right. Where do you think we're going? Yeah, and
it's not, and we list off them numerous fundamental reasons. Let's just go on, but we'll keep going with this. So a very stark stat that I read is since the fall of FTX, only 8 coins have broken their previous all-time highs versus Bitcoins in the Bitcoin pair. I'm not talking about, Solana and market cap, for instance, has made a new all-time high, but not in price. But for instance, Solana has not made a new all-time high in its BTC pair. So Render was one. Obviously, Render's exploded as an AI project. TRB had that ridiculous manipulation. I&J is another L1. BNB is obviously one that happened last week that we spoke about.
Surprised us all.
Yeah, surprised us all. And going back to what I said about the mining sentiment, it's a very similar thing with BNB. The things that have fudded the most kind of always outshine the most. But going back to what you said in terms of retail not being here yet, another very clear thing to me about why alts haven't flourished yet is if you go and look at crypto YouTube views, which is obviously an indicator a lot of people use, that's heavily lagging the Bitcoin price. So Bitcoin at 69,000 100,000 in 2021. There was 4 million YouTube views per day. In 2024, at the exact same Bitcoin pricing, there's only 800,000 per day. So you could say a quarter of the retail interest in Bitcoin right now is what there was 3 years ago at the all-time highs. So really all that demonstrates retail really aren't interested yet, are they? And I was speaking to Evan about this last week, and it's kind of that, like, I kind of almost just succumbed to the magical number of 100,000. You know how last cycle it wasn't until, obviously Bitcoin was raging the all-time highs of 69,000 that everyone got really interested. That was, think about how much of a multiplier that was until retail got interested. That is the serious run of last cycle. And so it's the same here. Like, yeah, we've made a massive run, but in terms of multiples, nowhere near the 2021 cycle. And so maybe it might be that kind of 7 to 8x up to 100,000 if we get there. Because think about it, if it was six figures, if it was 100,000, think about the media, think about the news, think about all the companies that would want to get involved.
It's ironic. Like, you're not wrong. I've been thinking about it as well, in the sense that, okay, let's just take March as a primary example. I could not turn my head without someone I knew messaging, calling. Yeah. You turn on the news at night and, Bitcoin's back above 50,000. Yeah. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, back at, 100,000 Australian or whatever. Yeah. So, like, I think you're right. Like, obviously it's going to need that figure for people to catch on again. Yeah. It's almost like that second peak in 21 that just blew the top off. And I feel like we're at a point where it's poised to really, shock a lot of people because of where it'll go. So, and it's kind of like you could envision, like, say 100,000 was the magic number. And it's kind of like, well, we might get to 85, 90,000 and we get that 20 to 30% pullback. And then alts start to run and then we go past 100,000 and then you can kind of envision what happens there. Which takes me to my next point is if you actually go and look at the total 3 chart, which I'll put this up, which is altcoins excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, they're still 42% away from their previous highs compared to last cycle. So the total market cap excluding BTC and ETH right now, 650 billion. Last cycle, it was almost 1.2 trillion. So almost kind of halfway there. So if you wanted to kind of visualize how far off, because you might think this is the top for alts, but you would be arguing if you were saying that we only reached a peak of 50% of the last cycle in altcoins, if that's what you want to say. So to me, that kind of just shows how far we've got to go, because not only would your expectation be as an investor this time around that we would reach the last peak, but that we would probably go beyond it. So I think the prior cycle peak before that was 400 billion. And then it was 1.2 trillion the next cycle. So it tripled altcoin value from cycle to cycle. It's hard to kind of gauge if, you can't kind of... Because I'd say a double would be...
Double, I think, is more safe to say, or even just back to where we were. And I only say that because of how much bigger Bitcoin is now as a commodity, as an ETF, that it can take away a lot of the market share from altcoins. But it just goes to show kind of the discrepancy in price performance is crystal clear to me. Bitcoin and alts still have a long way to go. So I wouldn't, give up yet.
Yippee.
I think. But it's kind of annoying as well, because I feel like the most annoying thing, and I can sense this between most altcoin investors, is that there's never been a sustained rally. So it's kind of been like you get that kind of same push with Bitcoin, don't you? Where it's like Bitcoin will rally first, and then it'll like stop somewhere, and then it'll consolidate, and alts will play catch up, and they'll run, and then Bitcoin will dump a bit, and alts will just reverse all of that price action.
Just get murdered.
Yeah, so it's literally like you can go and you can see, like I can even say this from the lows that we recently put in, where we rallied, to as high as Phantom and stuff are already back to that price, that 65 cents price. WIF is back to $2.60. And I was looking at the WIF chart last week, it was at $4. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and this is a multi-billion-dollar market cap. This isn't just some meme coin that's got a couple of people selling here and there. It's literally gone from $4 down to wiping billions off in a week and a half. So it goes to show you kind of how GD this market is with alts right now. As soon as they see any altcoin pullback, and it goes to what we were talking about before with futures and leverage, is that most people on each pullback are going, all right, I'm going to buy another $5,000 of WIF on spot. It's at $2.60. They go, I need to do a 10x leverage with my stop loss at $2.30 here, and hope that I catch 10 times my investment on the way up. And it just keeps happening over.
It's been really interesting. Like, have you looked at the flows as to where it's gone?
As in the flows of?
Oh, just generalized selling. Because I was looking the other day, and like in the last 24 hours, I wouldn't exactly say it's been like people offloading into stables.
No.
I've been I don't know. Like, do you reckon it's people just absolutely
just BTC? I think so as well.
Putting it straight back into BTC.
Well, if you go and look at dominance, it would suggest that.
Yeah.
Even this morning, I was showing Sashi something. Bitcoin hadn't moved.
Yeah.
It was traded a couple $100 higher, and it was up like 0.7% on dominance. And maybe people are selling out into BTC. I probably need to look into that a bit closer. I would say some of it is stables, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of it was to BTC. Because what I could envision is a lot of people seeing how ETH kind of reacted to this ETF news, and that they might have thought, well, hang on, I think BTC might actually still outperform it from here, because judging off the reaction, it's almost like BTC did better off the reaction. So I'm going to quickly give a summary explaining kind of the altcoin market phase. So everything was off cycle lows in Q4 of 2023. Kind of everyone got this when we started rallying into December, didn't we? It was kind of, we removed that fear of the cycle being over. And, heaps of alts, Solana, the main one, it was probably $20 in October, November. Yeah. So it got as high as 200 earlier this year. So it's a 10x for something like Solana, which is, third or fourth biggest coin by market capitalization. Yeah. So in Q1, we then had January, February, March. Several charts started resetting, but crazy moves on alts, select alts started to occur. So we saw WIF run, your Pepe's, blah, blah, blah. But dispersion kind of started to take effect where Sol and stuff kept running, but other alts were very weak, and it was like if you picked the wrong coin or the wrong industry, you were burnt, even if the alts kept running. So a lot of people got burnt fading Solana. Like if you were just stuck on ETH is the same price what it was months ago. Exactly. It was 4K. When did it peak to 4K? Probably Feb. I was going to say Feb. 4,100, whatever it was. So it's just like, if you were parked in ETH or ETH alts, ETH memes, besides Pepe, you were toast, you were burnt. And that was as the market rose, and it was just that you just happened to be in the wrong narrative or rotation. So, we kind of got to that Q2, so it was just past March, April, May, and we saw really bearish price action, and that was the deleveraging event. So that was when, a lot of people got burnt. And this is where the dispersion actually increased materially. And, whilst Bitcoin chopped, like we spoke about, and it ranged, most alts began to just trend down, and their BTC pairs were broken and completely cooked. So it's been tough with alts with that washy range. I can understand why most people would be upset, and that's just another reason why. And it's probably a good reason as to why you should have a lot of funds in Bitcoin, isn't it? For times like these, you would, if you were, had a lot of money in miners in Bitcoin, you probably wouldn't be stressing, would you?
Not at all. You've seen rewards go up.
Exactly. So we're going on a bit, and I'm probably going to repeat myself a bit, but essentially the 5 main reasons to conclude as to why alts have underperformed is because there's been a Bitcoin narrative-led cycle. We've seen, BlackRock alone acquire over 300,000 BTC, which is $21 billion in buying pressure. Although that they're interlinked, alts and Bitcoin, aren't they? Well, what has the catalyst been for alts? Have you said? Nothing, has it? And as you said, when we get to maybe a more crypto-friendly election and rate cuts start to happen and this and that, maybe that's where you get your narrative behind altcoins getting pushed. But what has been the altcoin push? What has been the narrative for that? Nothing. Bitcoin certainly had a few, but altcoins haven't. So it makes sense when you view it like that, doesn't it? Yeah. As noted, specific narratives have significantly outperformed memes, AI, and RWA in particular. I'll put a chart there that actually shows you this. So, if you felt like FOMO or, strong temptation rebalance, I'm not surprised. It's just been so hard to pick what ones are going to outperform. And, even on the meme coin one, it's like you can't sit here and be disappointed in yourself because every other cycle, I know we talk about relying on cycles, but meme coins have been the last thing. So this time it was first, last time it was last. So
to be honest, it's like everyone always asks, like, what meme I haven't actually bought in it.
Yeah, and
I've stayed sidelined, and it's really because, like, to be really honest, I kind of thought this may be a little bit of a pre-push.
Yeah, well, and there's no harm in sticking out of something good at. So the reason is, I see really good traders and investors get burnt because they feel the FOMO, like you're saying, rather than doing what you've done and just say, I'm just going to sit sideline. They go, I need to be involved because I'm missing gains. $5 grand here, $10 grand, it's all gone, dust.
Well, to me, it's never made sense as to why this frog's going ballistic. Do you know what I mean? So
well, I think it's just a lotto ticket thing generally. Obviously, there is blue chips are different, which we've done a podcast on, but majority of these Solana, I'm going to talk about it now, is the dilution. It's the highest it's ever been. How many crypto tokens do you reckon were created in May?
Oh, no, 10,000?
1 million tokens were created in May. That is 2 times the total amount of tokens ever created on Ethereum between 2015 to 2023.
That is ludicrous.
So there's 2 times the amount of tokens ever created on Ethereum from 2015 to 2023 created in May alone, just 1 month. So
is that and that's like created in general? What is there a percentage of like market cap above 10 grand?
Mate, it'll be the majority or less. So with your pump.fun, I don't know if you've seen that on Solana, where anyone can just make a token now. It automatically creates it for you, blah blah. So I'll put up a graph that shows kind of how diluted this is, and the graph actually excludes Solana, which is kind of crazy. And you see how in May, just how crazy it's done. Another one that's been really bad on people is the mixture of unlocks with bearish price action. So if you're an Arbitrum holder or Prime holder, so essentially it happened in March. We peaked on the altcoin market. ARP was $2.50. I had a cycle over 75 cents. So that's as much as almost a 4x. And they unlocked all of their tokens for early investors, found like huge amounts of the circulating supply was put into the market right at the cycle top. People start to see the price naturally trend lower because of the market. Oh, I'm going to sell all my ARB. Yeah, because I need to make a profit on my early investments. So ARB is now down to 95 cents. It was $2.50 in March. That is 3 months ago. Less. It was probably roughly about 3 months now. But this is the leading L2 of the leading cryptocurrency besides Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I guess it's one way to view how cheap things are right now and what you're kind of being gifted as well. To be
honest, as soon as I saw it go below $1, I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Exactly. So right now, on average, there's $200 million in unlocks a day in crypto. So Starknet's a big one, Optimism, Arbitrum, Prime, as I mentioned. So this is pretty much constant sell pressure on altcoins. There's no such thing as the unlock schedule on Bitcoin is mining. And right now, ETFs buy up pretty much 100 times of the mining pressure per day almost.
200% to be exact.
Yeah, there you go. And so it's much easier for Bitcoin to maintain its price. Altcoins, there's no such, they're just getting smashed. There's no ETF demand. There's no narrative, like I said, behind it for someone to go, oh, okay, there's $200 million of Arbitrum tokens unlocking today. I'm going to buy it. No, that's not what happens. So we've seen really harsh unlocks on a number of coins. So once again, altcoins get that applied selling pressure even more so, which doesn't help. So just to kind of summarize, Bitcoin-led cycle, only very few select narratives have performed well. New tokens are launching at a rapid pace, and dilution is the highest it's ever been. When you combine those 4 things, it's not surprising that your altcoin portfolio probably isn't performing as well as what you wanted. But additionally, you shouldn't get kind of right at this moment fearful, because the main event's kind of yet to happen, is it?
No point cheating now.
No point cheating now. Because if you look at prior cycles, there's been probably roughly about 546 days post-halving where the altcoin market has topped out. So if I'll show this chart here, but that would land us in about October 2025. So a long time away. What can obviously happen before then is, say, we might get, if you want to kind of do an easy comparison with the last cycle, let's just say we put in 150,000 at the November election. We might trade down to 69,000 again, and then back up to 200,000 by October. I'm just trying to give an example, comparing it of the 64,000 high down to 30,000.
I wasn't shocked. I was just more or less looking at in my head doing the calcs on how much I'd make. So that's okay. By selling at the first top, rebuying at the bottom, and then selling it. Yeah. So,
but I want to say, for a variety of reasons, cycle acceleration, macro. We know the elections. We've spoken about Donald Trump so much on this.
Do you think we'll have such a big second top, in the sense of like,
we might not. We might only have one, but no one knows. But that's what I was kind of saying. In any case, the way you look at it is that the altcoin peak has not happened yet, and it shouldn't for some time. So don't get upset that you're looking at Bitcoin peaking Bitcoin's not even peaking, but all-time highs, and going, why isn't this happening? As we said, 90 days post-halving, crab volume, crab price action. And then here, I'm literally showing you that every other cycle has had the same cyclical peak 546 days after. I'm not saying that's going to happen then. I think it will be accelerated a bit due to a variety of reasons. I don't think we have to have two peaks. But the point still stands that it's probable that we're still early from an altcoin point of view. So don't get shaken out. Don't lose your marbles, because during the first half of every cycle, what asset leads the way?
Bitcoin.
Correct, Taylor. Bitcoin.
Yeah. I thought that was almost rhetorical, and I'm like, is he actually wanting me to say this?
I thought you were just going to answer that completely wrong, and then I was going to embarrass you.
Yeah, it's actually Pepe.
So what people don't understand is this is really healthy, what we're seeing right now, because it's literally telling us this is what happened last time. This is what happened last time. So you can make probable guesses about what occurs if the same cyclical things are occurring, aren't they? And obviously, whilst Bitcoin leads the first half, then altcoins lead the second half. Doesn't automatically think what I was saying before, that Bitcoin just lifeboats everything upwards, and every, narrative and industry performs well. You're going to have to be select with your pickings again. If you want a shot at outperforming. What I mean by that is just not invest in anything. Be smart about it. Look at AI.
I'll give you a hot tip.
Yes.
As soon as Trump gets in, Trump is going to go nuts.
Well, I've already one parked and loaded there. So, you have to be probably a bit more careful this cycle round. Don't go investing in everything. L1s.
You can't. What do they call it again? Spray and pray.
Spray and pray.
Yeah, you can't just
can't spray and pray anymore.
Yeah, you can't shotgun it.
Nah, got to be precise. So, L1s, gaming projects, AI projects, blue chip memes. Obviously, if memes to be that hot narrative, you probably can't ignore it any longer.
Blue chip meme now?
Huh?
Blue chip memes.
No, well, your Doge, your Pepes, the ones that are in the top 10, top 20. Do you
still count Doge as a meme now?
They're memes.
Yeah, right.
They're memes. That's why I call them blue chip memes. I separate them from the others. So essentially, to kind of conclude on this whole rabble I've gone on, it's a stage of the cycle where you pretty much need to be the most resilient and the most patient. Just don't get shaken out, like I said.
It feels like what we said last week.
Yeah.
We're at 35K.
Yeah.
And everyone's starting to panic because we're going back down to 30, and it's just been mad. Look at what happened after.
Yeah.
Look at 20 days post when we hit 30 again.
Exactly.
40 up. There we go.
Mm-hmm. So, if you're someone in this cycle that's sitting there and you're only in on a little bit of profit, or you're slightly down, or you're up at 2x, I'm reminded that in a true vertical alt season, if you are down 30% on your bag, let's just say you're 30% down on your Ethereum, or let's just use Pepe, or whatever you want to use, is that 30% can be erased in 15 minutes in a bull market. 500% can occur in a week. You might have to wait 3 months to see a negative 50% drawdown on an alt. That can happen in a day.
BTC alone, between March and June, it was up 65%.
Last year?
No, this year.
Bitcoin was, so.
Yeah, 65%. It went up from 35 to 70.
That's true.
Within the space of 2.5 months.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, well, I actually showed this to someone the other day. The exact figure was just above 90%. So, as in, I looked at it was 90% in 50 or so days. So, 55 days. So, I looked at when it was 38,000 to 70,000, and it was that drop, sell the news event on the ETF. And then I think it took us 52 days or something to do 90% in gains, and that's on Bitcoin. So this is a $1 trillion asset. Yeah. And so if you're worried there about your altcoin that's in the top 100, 200, you'll see 500% weekly gains on some alts. With negative 20, negative 30% pullbacks, eroded in an hour. This is a bull market. We're in bullish market structure. Regardless of what's happening, you're going to feel the fruits of it eventually. So patience is a must. Don't lose sight. Don't lose conviction as to why you're initially here and the tokens you're investing in and why you were. Because as I said, we're yet to see the fruits of, what we've been waiting so patiently for.
Yeah, exactly.
And we will soon enough. So don't give up yet. I think the next 6 months is really special for crypto and particularly for altcoins eventually. You're just going to have to ride the tide if you're not with Bitcoin and wait for that to really see fruition, which I think you'll see one more peak in Bitcoin dominance, and then we'll see a downturn, and you should be able to see altcoins flourish. So for those out there, hopefully you've got a statistic in here, or you got some insight into probably why altcoins haven't performed as well, but why you should still remain patient, be resilient, and And then, hopefully soon enough you'll see the gains and we can all celebrate together on this podcast. And I won't blow this now because it's not very deserving, but the day Bitcoin dominance tops, we'll blow this a number of times. Maybe I will. Taylor won't. Okay, alrighty. Thank you, everyone. We shall see you next week.
See you next week.